morning, ladies and gentlemen. As I introduced myself, my name is Dr. Al-Zaini, and I'm Assistant Professor of Civil Engineering at University of Evansville. I'm a graduate of a Quranic school. You know these Quranic schools that they bring in the media every once in a while? I'm a graduate of one of those schools that teaches Quran. And I graduated from there before I joined the School of Engineering and just continue my education to be a civil engineer. The topics that I'm going to be covering today are three main topics. And this presentation is available online. At the end, I'll give you the website where you can just download the whole presentation from. Several formats, so you can have it on your computer if you want. The first topic is the three spiritual motivations that motivates Muslims. What is it motivating a person who believes in Islam? And the second is the 6 pillars of faith. And the third is the 5 pillars of worship. And let's start by the spiritual motivations. Why do we need spiritual motivations? We need spiritual motivations to fight evil temptations that are intrinsic inside us, that are installed inside us, okay, that differentiate us from angels, because angels don't have temptations. So they don't think about any evil things, but because we do have temptations. Our temptations are inviting us to the evil path, and our conscience is inviting us to the good path, and we get to choose. And this is how come we have a free will. And so we need these spiritual motivations to fight our selfishness and greed and all these other evil temptations. Do we have really evil temptations built on inside us? Yes, I'll just remind you with few of them that is causing all the trouble that you see around. The first one is the excessive selfishness and greed. You know, people are fighting. Mine. No. It's mine. No, it's mine. And people keep fighting over things. And that's something that is causing a lot of trouble and a lot of evil generated around us is caused by this particular temptation. The other temptation, ego and arrogance. I am the best person ever. Nobody's better than me. You know, me and mine and mine and mine and I and me and all of that. Hatred and grudges. Boom! You know, he did this and he did that. And, you know, revenge, anger, revenge. Boom! You know, you probably are recognizing one time where you were a victim of one of those evil temptations that made you do something like you did not want to do, something bad. Envy and jealousy. She's more beauty than me. She has a better car. Oh, okay. She got my boyfriend. All of that, you know. Cowardness. Stay away from me. Stay away from me. You know. Don't bother me. I just want to live safely. You know. Don't want to help anybody. Just stay away from me. You know, cowardness. Stinginess and excessive love of money. Dollars. Dead presidents. Show me the dead president. Green stuff. Green paper. Stinginess and excessive love of money, and we also have laziness. Oh, you know the couch potato? Sit there and don't want to work. Don't want to get tired. Just want to be in the comfort zone all the time. Laziness. Evil desire, racism. People who don't look like me are different. I am better than them because, you know, I have a different color, or I have a different race, or I have a different this, or I have a different that. That's another one of the evil desires for the creation that causes a lot of problems around. Excessive self-admiring. My self-admiring. Nobody is better than me in this world, and I am the one who else is beside me. And then sexual desires outside of marriage. You know, taking out other ladies, taking out other men, or, you know. All these are just samples of the evil temptations that we have intrinsic inside us that make us think about evil and make us want to do evil. So on the other side, we need some kind of motivation from inside that motivate us to fight selfishness, to fight greed, to fight laziness, to fight all these evil temptations that we've talked about. What are these three spiritual motivations that Islam provides? Number one, the love of God and the very strong desire to please God. Number two, is the strong desire to go to heaven and to earn heaven. And I'm underlining the word earn because in Islam, you earn your house. You are building your house in heaven right now. By doing good deeds, it's like a credit-based system. It's like the more good deeds and the more sacrifices and the more control you have over your evil desires, and the more sacrifices you make for the sake of God, the better place you get in heaven. It's like a credit-based system. It's not just your belief is saving you, it is the deeds that you do are the ones who save you. And then the third one is the fear of God's punishment. I'm afraid of punishment of God, whether it is going to be in this life, in the form of a disease or an accident or whatever, or in the hereafter, of course, it's going to be much worse, which is hellfire. An analogy of that, just think about it. What would motivate a person to wake up 4:30 in the morning, take a shower, and go to work? Number one, probably the love of the job. Or number two, the very strong desire to earn the salary. And number three, the very strong fear of this person from being fired. So these are the three spiritual motivations. You can, three actual materialistic motivations. You can see the parallel. Love of money, love of God, love of job. Strong desire to go to heaven, strong desire to earn the salary. Fear of God's punishment, fear of being fired. This is like a parallel that shows you that this person is waking up 4:30 in the morning, taking a shower and going out when it's snowing, when it's very cold, to go to work and put like 11, 12 hours at work. This is a big commitment and big sacrifice. And the question is, why would this person put such a commitment and such a sacrifice? Because of these three materialistic motivations. So these are the three materialistic motivations, but these are the three spiritual motivations. Also, we need the spiritual motivations to fight evil inclinations. Evil inclinations, it is to do and support what is right, to motivate us to do and support what is right, even if it causes pain, even if it requires sacrifice, and even if it's against our own materialistic benefit. But it's evil, then we resist that pressure. It's a very strong pressure that sometimes we are victims of that pressure. And to fight that pressure, we need these spiritual motivations. And to stop ourselves from doing what is wrong and condemn what is wrong, even if it causes pain, even if it causes pleasure, even if we love it, even if it causes pressure, even if we love it, even if it brings materialistic benefit to us, we still condemn it and don't do it because of these three spiritual motivations. And then motivate us also to sacrifice for the sake of God. And let me explain a little bit about sacrificing for the sake of God, because that is related to the intention. Because if you sacrifice for the sake of pleasing yourself, then you're not really working for the sake of God. Intention is very important in Islam. It's almost 1/3 of the religion of Islam. Then the other 2/3 is not any good without. What is the intention? Two people will do the same exact thing. One of them will go to heaven and the other one will go to hell because of doing the same exact thing. For example, two people donating $1,000 in the same fundraising for the same cause. One of them is rewarded by God and the other one is punished by God. Why? This one, the first one, is doing it for the sake of God. But the other one is doing it for the sake of recognition. So the other one is basically doing like this. Okay, everybody. All right, where's 6 o'clock news? I'm paying a charity, everyone. I'm paying a charity. Okay, you can have this in charity. Oh, everyone, okay, call 6 o'clock news because I want everyone to know that I'm paying the charity. I'm running for elections. You know, this person is paying the money for the sake of who? God. Or for the sake of himself. Himself. So that person is not doing it for the sake of God, while the other person is really doing it for the sake of God, either secretly or openly, but in his heart or her heart, he or she is doing it for the sake of God. So that is the difference, that the deeds has to be done for the sake of God. In Islam, deeds that are not done for the sake of God are not rewarded by God in the hereafter. Like if somebody does a good deed for the sake of satisfying his or her own temptation. Like I'm helping a person who has a flat tire on the road so that I feel better about myself. So this kind of good deed is rewarded in this life. God will make your life better, will improve the quality of your life as a reward for you in this life, for what you have done. But in the hereafter, God would not recognize this as a good deed because you did not do it for the sake of God. You really was doing it to feel better about yourself because you feel satisfied and happy helping others, which is good, but it's not for the sake of God. It has to be motivated. The motive has to be for the sake of God, for God to reward you in the hereafter. But if the motive is not for the sake of God, it is for the sake of something else, then you might get a reward in this life. And then you and God will become even, like God has paid you the reward or the gratitude or the thank you for doing that. So it has to be for the sake of God. This is why the Muslim is a person who's always looking, should be looking for the hereafter. When he or she is sacrificing time, money, or effort, whether it's precious time, precious money, or precious effort, he or she is sacrificing for the sake of God, looking forward for the hereafter, the reward in the hereafter, not looking for the reward to come in this life. If it comes in this life, fine, great, no problem. We will not say no, we will take it. But this is not the objective. The objective is to look for the hereafter. So not wait for anything in this life. If it comes, great. If it doesn't come, then we don't say, oh my God, I made such a big sacrifice and I didn't get anything back. We are not expecting anything back in this life. But if it comes in this life, fine. But if it doesn't, then we're waiting for the hereafter. And then let's get into the part 2, which is the 6 pillars of faith. 6 pillars of faith. Number 1 is to believe in God. To believe in God. He's one God. The same exact God worshipped by Jacob, worshipped by Abraham, worshipped by Moses, worshipped by Joseph, Jesus, Noah, worshipped by all these prophets of God. They all worship one God in heaven. And that is the God that we should believe in. We should believe that God is perfect. Perfect means that He has the highest level of perfection. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't eat. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't forget. There's nothing that He doesn't know, and all of these things. He doesn't regret the mistakes that He has done. He doesn't need to rest. So we don't believe that God created heavens and earth in 6 days, and then He rested in the 7th day. We don't believe, we believe that God is too powerful and too perfect to rest. So we don't believe that God needs any kind of resting. And we also believe that He has the perfect attribute of beauty and greatness. So He's flawless. He's free from any deficiency or any, and He is like in full control of everything. And He knows the future, He knows the best. Everything is under His control. And He never makes mistake, He never regrets what He does. So, and He did not beget, nor was He begotten. He doesn't have children, He doesn't have a family, He's God. He's not a male, He's not a female, He's just God, different than us. We don't confuse the attributes of the human beings with the attributes of God. God is something and human being is something else. So we don't take our attributes and give and assign them to God. No, God is too perfect to have our attributes, like we forget, we make mistakes, we sometimes controlled by temptations and all of that. God is totally different than that. And He's the big boss. Did you ever see a country without a president? Which country is without a president? Any? Can you name one? Nothing, right? Did you ever see a company without a boss? So, can we imagine a universe without a big boss? So he's the big boss of the universe. That's how we perceive him. He's the big boss of the universe. And not being able to see Him doesn't mean that He doesn't exist. Can I say, because I can't see God, then He doesn't exist? No. Why not? Can we see the germs, for example? No. Now we can see them with the microscope. How about before inventing the microscope? We couldn't see them, right? But the fact that we can't see God doesn't mean that He doesn't exist. I can't say, because I don't see germs, then they don't exist. No. I can't see germs and they do exist. And same thing. This is just an example. The fact that we can't see God doesn't mean that He does not exist. Then how can we prove or verify that He exists? Right here. He has signs everywhere. The biggest sign is in our own creation. This is why when the non-believers were saying to the Prophet Muhammad, okay, we don't see your God, and we don't see any sign of His existence. So God replied on the Quran and He said, look at your own human bodies. Of course, if you look at the universe, you see my own signs, all these planets and this beautiful universe. But don't even go far. Don't go far away. Just look at your own body. You know, the most important muscle in your body is the heart. I control it. You don't control it.
You eat the food and you don't even know how the food is being digested and filtered. The useful material is retained and the bad material goes out as number 1 and number 2. Do you know how the food is being filtered? No. Who's taking care of this? Look at this very sophisticated vehicle, which is the human body that God has created for us. We believe that the soul is like the driver of the car, and the body is like the car. And that means separation of the driver from the car. And then the car is taken to the junkyard, which is the graveyard. So look at this very sophisticated vehicle. That's better than a Lexus, huh? If you lose one of your kidneys, you know, you probably spend $1 million to replace it. So here we go. You have a couple of kidneys for $2 million. Congratulations. Given to you for free from God. So this is the brain. We don't know how the brain works. So even our own human body, we have no idea how it works. Now, who created it, who controls it? It is God. So that's a big sign of existence of God. And the second pillar of faith is to believe in the angels of God. And the angels of God, we don't believe that they are ladies with wings. We believe that they are created from light. Created from light. And they don't have any temptations. And because they don't have any temptations, they don't have any free will. Why? They would never think about evil. They would never do evil. Why? Because they don't have any kind of temptations, intrinsic or built in them. So they always do and think about good things. Because they are always motivated towards obeying God and listening to God's orders. And they don't have any temptations inside them that would pressure them to disobey God, to think about anything evil. Therefore, they don't have a free will. They are always thinking about good things. And that explains why God created his biggest enemy, which is temptations. And why did he install temptations inside us? He's the one that created his biggest enemy, temptations. And he's the one who put temptations inside us. Because if we don't have temptations inside us, then we don't have a free will. We will never think about, we will become just angels. We will never think about evil. We will always be doing good things. So, and this is why we have temptations that invite us and pressure us to the evil path. And, you know, the guidance of God and the spiritual motivations inviting us to the good path. And we have to choose. We have the free will to choose between the two. And there is no reward or punishment for them. And the Satan, we don't believe that the Satan was from the angels. The Satan is created from fire, and he belongs to the jinn kind. And he had a free will. And he disobeyed God based on a free will, because if he's an angel, he would never refuse the orders of God to bow down. So he's from a different kind of creation, but he was living with angels at that time. And the angels are not females or females. So what are they? They are angels. They're not neither female nor males, you know. To believe in the messengers of God. The messengers of God are basically teachers, sent to answer questions to us. Do we have questions? Yes. Like what? Plenty of questions. Is there any God? Where is he? Who is he? What is he expecting from us? What should we expect from him? Where are we going after death? Is there a life after death? Who goes to heaven? Who goes to hell? Based on what criteria? Not to mention, what's the purpose of life? Where and how and when and why to worship God? All these questions, you know, we have no answers for. And Socrates, who was one of the smartest brains in the old days, tried to come up with an answer for one of these questions, which is, what's the purpose of life? And after thinking for 3 days, he came up with a very silly answer. He said that God is higher than us. He doesn't think about beings that are lower than him, and then he is just doesn't care about us anymore. He created us, and then he walked away from us. It's like he spit, and he doesn't care about his spit. He just walked away from us. And that explains all the injustice and the slavery and the abuse that are present. Because if God is present, he will never allow that. And of course, that was a silly answer. You know, the reason, the explanation of the evil is the free will. Because if God is going to come down and stop criminals from doing crimes, then where is the free will? If I have a free will, it means that I have freedom to do either the right path or the wrong path. I have freedom to choose, either right or left. If God, every time I decide to do something evil, God is going to come down and stop me by force, then excuse me, where is the free will? So that, the free will explains why there is an evil, why there are crimes. It's all explained by the free will, and explains by the evil temptations built inside us. pressuring us towards the evil path. And we are being listening to these evil temptations. That explains crime. It's not God's fault. It's our fault. That we are, instead of listening to God, we listen to our temptations. So who are these prophets? Let me get back to this. These prophets are starting from Adam. You know, this is just what I can fit. There are so many of them. These are just what I can fit in this space. Starting from Adam, Idris, Noah, Lot, Hud, Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, David, Solomon, Ezra, John, Jesus, Muhammad, all these prophets of God. Now, why would God send more than one prophet? Because every time God sends a prophet, he guides the people and sets them straight. And then by the time the prophet dies, okay, people start to, after the prophet dies, people start to deviate a little by little by little. After several generations, people have gone wicked again. Do you remember the story of Noah? Didn't God destroy all the wicked people in the flood? By the time of Abraham, everybody was worshiping idols by the time of Abraham. How come all wicked people were destroyed here at the time of Noah? But by the time Abraham came, there was a period of time where people deviated and went back into worshiping idols. Abraham was the only one at this time that was worshiping God alone and not worshiping idols. And he had to reach that and bring a generation after him that worships God only and not idols. So this is why God, it's like people deviate. God sends another prophet. People deviate again, another prophet. Deviate, another prophet. Deviate, another prophet. And so forth. People deviate, another prophet. And the books of all these prophets, God will send them with them scriptures for them to guide people and to teach from these scriptures, which is the fourth pillar of faith. These prophets, like any teacher, if you take a course in any college, you need to buy a textbook, right? Any teacher will have a textbook. These scriptures are like the textbooks that the teachers teach from when they are alive and leave behind when they die for people to learn from. These scriptures are, for example, the Quran was given to Prophet Muhammad, the Bible was given to Prophet Jesus, the Torah was given to Prophet Moses, and the books of Prophet Abraham and the books of Prophet David. All these are the famous ones that are mentioned in the Quran. But there are every and each prophet, not really every and each prophet, but every and each major prophet was given a scripture. And this also explains something very important, that Islam is the only non-Christian based religion in the whole world that believes in Jesus and the Bible. Believes that Jesus was sent by God as a prophet to guide humanity and to answer the questions. And believes that the Bible is a scripture that was sent by God. Even though we don't believe that the Bible is 100% accurate, but we accept the portion of the Bible that is confirmed by the Holy Quran. But the portion of the Bible that contradicts and conflicts with the Holy Quran, we reject it. But we accept like a big portion of the Bible that was given, that is confirmed by the Holy Quran. And one of the reasons is that we think that the Bible is not 100% accurate is because of this translation game, that the original language of the Bible is not alive. If you play this game, start from language A, and then translator 1 to language B, translator 2 to language C, translator 3 back to language A. If you start with one word, you end up with a different word. So if you start with hi, by the time you go around and come back, it is going to be bye. Because every translation is an interpretation. This is one of the reasons that we think that all the conflicts between the Quran and the Bible are introduced because of human translations and human editing of the Bible. Human editing of the Bible. Then number 5 is to believe in the day of judgment. To believe that there will be a day of judgment. And let me ask you a question. Who knows Hitler? Everyone. How many people Hitler killed? 17 million people. Where is Hitler now? 6 foot, buried 6 foot under the dirt, right? Sleeping peacefully 6 foot under the dirt. Now let's imagine a very nice lady who lived an ordinary life to help others and make them happy. And she has sacrificed precious time, money, and effort to make others happy. And then she dies. Where does she go? 6 foot under the dirt. Can I say that this lady is equal to Hitler in this case? Yes, unfortunately, this is the truth. If this is the end, if there is no day of judgment, if there is no resurrection, then Hitler is equal to this lady. Both of them are buried 6 foot under the dirt, sleeping peacefully. Can this be fair? Can we respect God if He will let Hitler get away with his crimes? I wouldn't have respect for God if He would let Hitler get away with his crimes without a punishment. And He would let this lady, just die and buried under the dirt, 6 foot under the dirt, without any reward for her sacrifices. Of course, God is too perfect to let this happen, and too just. If you do injustice between your children, then you're a bad father, right? Would you think that God will do injustice between His creation? Then He's a bad God if He does that. Of course, there will be justice. There will be a day of resurrection where Hitler will be resurrected and punished severely for his crimes, and this lady would be resurrected and rewarded generously for her sacrifices for the sake of God. And that is, without the day of judgment, everything in the concept of Islam totally collapses, because it's all dependent on the reward and the punishment in the day of judgment. Remember the 3 spiritual motivations? Loving God. When are we going to see Him? In the day of judgment. Very strong desire to go to heaven. When? In the day of judgment. Very strong fear of the punishment of God or hellfire. Where? When? In the day of judgment. So without the day of judgment, life would be no fair. Let me tell you something, really. If there is no day of judgment, why should I fight my selfishness and greed? Why? Why should I sacrifice time, money, and effort for the sake of God? If I ask you to sacrifice something and you're not getting anything back, probably you sacrifice what? Old shoes, old clothes? That's about it. But you won't sacrifice something precious. So without the day of judgment, I would just, what is the quickest way of getting rich? Dealing drugs, right? Why not? If there's no day of judgment, and at the end I'm going to be like Hitler. Actually, Hitler's a cool guy. Why? Because he got away with his crimes. Look at him, he enjoyed his temptations, and he at the end is equal to this lady who's not, who I would call her idiot lady, because she wasted her time, money, and effort doing good deeds, and at the end she's equal to Hitler, buried 6 foot under the dirt. So, of course, without the day of judgment, this will be the lie. And there would be no motivation for me to fight my selfishness and greed and sacrifice time, money, and effort for the sake of God. And last is to submit ourselves in full acceptance of the decisions made by God. God makes decisions. We have a free will, yes. But some of the decisions are made by God, not by our free will. Such as what? Like your birthplace. Did you choose your birthplace? Did you choose your birth date? Did you choose your father? Did you choose your gender? All these decisions are made by God. Not only that I cannot reject these decisions and say, God, why did you make me a boy? I wanted to be a girl. God, why did you give me this color? I wanted that color. No, that is totally rejected. But also, not only that is rejected, but also we should feel proud about the decisions made by God. So I am proud about who I am. I am proud about my hair because that was a decision. The color of my hair is the God's decision. I'm proud about my race. I'm proud of my skin color. Why? Because God decided that to me, and I'm proud of it. That was the decision made by God. I'm proud of it. And that explains why Islam is a color-blind religion. Islam is totally against recognizing colors. Why? Because this is the decision made by who? By God. If I look down to a person because of his or her color, then I am looking down to a decision made by God. Who decides? That person did not choose his color. God chose the color for him or her. So I cannot just look at this decision made by God in a derogatory or negative way. And at the same time, we don't get credit for things given to us by God. So if I look pretty, or if I have something that makes me gifted to me by God, that makes me better than others, I don't get credit for it because it's from God. I only get credit for what I do. I get credit for submission to God. I get credit for listening to God. This is what I get credit for. And that explains why Islam is a color-blind religion. It's built in the 6th pillar of faith. Of course, things get more serious than that. For example, God forbid, if you lose your husband and children in a car accident, who made that decision? You? Your husband? Who made the decision? God. Can you say, God, why did you take my wife and children away from me? You're so mean. You're so unfair. Oops. Can you say that? No. That is against this 6th pillar of faith. Can you cry? Yes. Can you feel sad? Sure. You're a human being. But you cannot insult God or accuse God. and say you're unfair, you're this, you're that. So you cry, but you are in your heart acknowledging that you are submissive to this decision. And let me tell you something, by the way. Let's say you don't want to accept that decision, and you don't want to accept the decision made by God. Then you know what's the alternative? Banging your head against the wall, right? Why? For 10 days. Why? And then what's going to happen after 10 days? You again are going to accept the decision of God. Because the decision of God is, you're not going to change it. So better accept it from your day one. Believers do from day one what non-believers do from day 11. So at the end, both will accept the decision of God. But one will accept it from day one, and the others will accept it from day 11, because we have to live with it anyway. So all these are decisions made by God, and we have to accept it. Now, meaning of the word Muslim, let me go back to this. The purpose of life, that God wanted the creation of Him that worships Him based on a free will. Angels worship God, yes, but they don't have a free will. They don't have the choice. They have to worship God because there's one way. That's the only thing that He can do. But God wanted a higher kind of worship, a superior kind of worship, a worship from a creation that can worship. That when they worship God, they have the choice not to worship God. And when they sacrifice time, money, and effort for the sake of God, they are doing it because of His love, because they love Him. And they have very strong desire to go to heaven, and very strong fear for His punishment. And this is exactly why they are doing it. So they have the choice not to do it, but they are doing it. When they are praying to God, they have the choice not to. When they are sacrificing precious time, money, and effort for the sake of God, they have the choice not to do it. When they are being submissive to God instead of being submissive to temptations, they have the choice not to do it. So this is the purpose of life. It's a test. And we should prove good. We should prove that we qualify for heaven by being submissive to God instead of being submissive to our temptation. And that explains the meaning of the word Muslim. Muslim means submissive. Submissive to what? God says, be submissive to me. Don't be submissive to evil temptations. Be Muslims to me. Don't be Muslims to evil temptations. So, basically, if a person is controlled by evil temptation, this person is Muslim to evil temptations. If the person is controlled by God, then this person is Muslim to God. And then we will move to the last point, which is the 5 pillars of worship. Do you have any questions on the 6 pillars, 3 spiritual motivations, and 6 pillars of faith before we go into the 5 pillars of worship? Can you think of any questions? Believe in God, His angels, His prophets, or His messengers, His scripture books, the day of judgment, and to submit ourselves in full acceptance and respect of the decisions made by God. 3 spiritual motivations: love of God, desire to go to heaven, and fear of His punishment. No questions? Okay. Then let's move to the 5 pillars of worship.
Is it simple? Seem like every religion, I think everybody consider it on their definition. That's simple. But the world make it difficult in how you should worship, add things to worship one God. I think the world knows that there is one God, there's only one God. But their own free will, free choice, they do other things, add to worship God.
You know, I love your question, you know why? Because it ties into part 3, because that's the real test. Faith is in the heart. And everyone, moving the tongue is so easy. Everyone can claim. Cheap lip service and claim that, oh, I'm a believer. But when pushes comes to shove, and temptations are applying a pressure on you to do something evil, and you say no to your temptation, and you ridicule your temptation, you say, I'm not listening to you, you're bad, you wanted me to be a bad person. And then you follow your conscience, and you follow the guidance of God. This is the real test. So it's not easy, it's hard, because we go through it every time. We get through so many situations in life. Every day, lots of these situations where we have to make a decision. Okay? Temptations are pulling us one way. God is telling us the other way. And we have to choose either ridicule our conscience and say, you conscience, you wanted me to listen to you and be a loser? I'm not listening to you. You're a loser. I'm going to follow my temptations because they are good. They are telling me to do this and take advantage of this and jump on the top. Okay. At the same time, the other person is going to ridicule his temptations or her temptations and listen to his or her conscience. So, pushes comes to shove, and there's a test in every minute of your life. And this is a demonstration. That is the first test. The 5 pillars of worship is the first test and the most basic test that you have to pass before you can consider yourself a Muslim. So this is the scratch line below which a person is not considered a Muslim. This is the least amount of submission, is to submit yourself in obedience to God and performing these 5 pillars of worship. Like, what happens if you knock down the pillar? The building will what? Collapse. So, pillar of faith, same thing. Pillar of worship, same thing. You knock down the building, but the foundation is the between a person who's not Muslim. Worship is the practice of faith, putting faith in actual life. Because God, when God sent His guidance to be just precious text written with a cheap ink on cheap paper, God wanted His guidance to be a real life. So when God writes in the scripture and says, I want justice, God wants this, I want justice, wants you to take, I want justice, and make it a real life. So when you look, read the scripture, and look around you in real life, you find them matching. Okay? The evil temptation says, I want selfishness. I want to greed. I want only to think about myself. Now this is evil temptations. Now look around you in real life then. Don't we throw the crops in the ocean to keep the price up and instead of feeding the hungry and food? Don't you see great injustices around you? Don't you see racism? Don't you see double standards? Don't you see selfishness in the way we look at the other people? This is all, is that the guidance of God? Is that the guidance that God's written in Scripture? So we are reading the guidance of God, and we're not listening to what God says, and we are listening to our temptations. We're being motivated by selfishness and greed and materialistic benefits. We make decisions not based on idealism and moral values, and what is just and what is fair and what is right, and treat people the way we would like to be treated. No, we make decisions based on what is the best for me. What's going to bring me more money? What's going to get me more better job? What's going to make me more happy? What? So we are being submissive to our temptations without realizing it. Now, how, in order to be submissive to God instead of being submissive to temptations, you need tools, right? These are 5 tools, basic tools, that God provides so that you use them to achieve what you want, which is being submissive to God instead of being submissive to temptation. And then, worship without faith is not acceptable in Islam. Why? Why worship without faith is not acceptable?
It's like being double-minded and have double standards. You know, worship is
Right. What is the motive? Why are you worshiping? If you don't have faith, then what's the motive behind the worship? Right? Makes sense? At the same time, faith without practice is not acceptable at the same time. Why? Because it's hypocrisy to believe one way and to act in another way. So both have to come together, like a horse and carriage. Faith is the horse, and practice is the carriage. So the first thing that we require to practice is to say the supreme word of remembrance. This is called the supreme word of remembrance. Remembrance of God. What is remembrance of God? There are 2 states of mind. State of mind of remembrance of God and state of mind of forgetfulness of God. Okay? Now, if God is present in the heart, then God is controlling our behavior and our decisions. Once God goes out of the heart, then temptations are going to come in right away. And temptations are going to take over and control our decisions and behavior. So the solution is, or the tool is, to be submissive to God instead of being submissive to temptations. The tool is, or the strategy is to keep God in your heart all the time. To keep God in your heart all the time means to maintain the state of mind of remembrance of God. and don't slide into the state of mind of forgetfulness of God. How do you do that? There are words of remembrance that you say during your daily life that is part of your daily activities that reminds you of God. God, God. For example, you enter the home, you say in the name of God, I enter my home. You go out of your home, you say in the name of God, I go out of my home, and God, please don't let me do injustice to others, and don't let others do injustice to me. You walk into the bathroom, you say, God, I seek protection from you against all evil things. You walk into the bathroom. You walk out of the bathroom, you walk with your left leg. You walk in with your right leg. All these things automatically remind you of God. This is just a tool to remind you of God. When you go out of the bathroom, you say, gratitude be to you, God, the one who enabled my body to get rid of the material that may harm it and retain the material that benefits my body. And these words of remembrance continuously, it's mixed with your daily activities. You eat in the name of God. You thank God. Your daily activities with the words of remembrance keep God remembrance in your heart. God in the heart, temptations are out of the heart. God out of the heart, temptations are in the heart. There's no way around that. So you need to maintain God into the heart as much as you can. And this is the supreme word of remembrance, that you are declaring that there is no deity worthy of worship except God, and that Muhammad is the messenger of God. And by accepting Muhammad as the messenger of God, you are accepting the Quran and accepting all the prophets that came, including the biblical prophets that came before Muhammad. So that is the word of remembrance. Is it strong enough to keep you? Words of remembrance. Are they strong enough to keep you? No. We need another tool, which is to pray 5 times a day. That's another tool. And let me explain to you how do we use this prayer as a tool to be submissive to God instead of being submissive to temptation. Let me explain to you how it works. The way it works is very simple. You wake up in the morning with total forgetfulness of God. God's not in the heart. As soon as you do the first prayer, which is before sunrise, then the remembrance of God level goes up to where it should be. So it goes from 0 to up, where it should be. You go to work and you do your daily activities, the remembrance of God goes down, 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 down slowly, right? Noon time comes, lunchtime comes, the remembrance of God falls below where it should be. Then you do the second prayer, then it goes up again, okay? Then, down, 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 down. Afternoon prayer, up again, down, 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 down. Sunset prayer, up again, down, 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 down. Evening prayer, up again, and then you go to sleep and then you repeat the cycle. So that's a tool to keep God alive in your heart and to keep temptations out. God can temptations out. So this is the purpose of the prayer. And the second purpose of the prayer, let me ask you a question. Do you have a child who's attending college around outside of Evansville? Let's say you have a child, let's say a daughter, who's attending college outside of Evansville, and you write her a check every month to cover her expenses. Okay? Now, let's imagine that your daughter gets you a check, and she doesn't call you to say, thank you, mommy, for the check. Thank you, daddy, for the check. How do you feel? Bad girl. Okay. Probably, maybe she's busy. Okay. I sent her the check of August, she didn't call. Okay, let me send her the check of September. She's not calling in September either. Probably you're not going to send her any more checks, right? But this is so mean. You love her so much. I think you will keep sending her checks. But now imagine that you call your daughter and you say, this is why, by the way, we pray. In addition to, as a tool of remembrance, it's also a tool to thank God. It's a phone call to God. It's like, we call God 5 times a day. Each call is 5 minutes and say, thank you for everything that you have given to us. And please come to our heart to help us kick temptations out and be submissive to you instead of temptations. Now, the second, just imagine that you call your daughter and say, hey, you bad girl, why don't you call mommy or daddy and say thank you for the check? She says, Mom, Dad, I called, I hear the door knocking, and the post and the mail person is giving me the check. So I kiss the hand of the mail person who's giving me the check, and I say thank you to the mail person. Hello, hello, wait a minute, are you dumb? Who's sending the check, the mail person or me? Mommy, I don't see you sending me the check. I see the mail person giving me the check, so I kiss his hand and I thank him. I've done my gratitude. No, 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 no. You're thanking the wrong guy. You should. God is saying the same thing. God is covering himself behind reasons, right? So there's the veil of reasons, but God is behind that veil of reasons. The veil of reasons are made of like the male person. God is like the mother or the father who's sending the check. But we don't see God because he's behind that veil. The veil of the reasons and the veil of the male person. So if we have faith, then we will not thank the male person. Then we will not believe into the male person. We will thank the male person, but we will not believe into the male person. We will believe into who? The God of the male person, right? The God of the male person. We will not believe into the medication, but we will believe into the God of the medication. We will not believe into the doctor, but we will believe into the God of the doctor. How many people die when they are surrounded by the best doctors and taking the best medication? So many. So we don't believe in the reasons. We believe in the God of the medication and the God of the reasons. If we take away the glasses of faith, then we will see only the veil of reasons. And we will believe into the doctor, we will believe into the medication, we will believe into the male person who is delivering the check. But once we put the glasses of faith in our eyes, we see beyond. And we will believe into the God of those reasons. And this is why we pray to call into the God behind the veil and say, thank you. We believe into you, not into these reasons. So the male person is just the reason through which God is sending us the check. But we believe in God, not in the male person. Another, just let's imagine that you call your daughter and say, hey, you bad girl. Why don't you call mommy to say thank you for the check? And then she says, who are you? What? Who are me? I am your mother, the one, who delivered you to this world. I don't have a mother. You don't have a mother? Then, who changed your diaper? Who fed you? Where did you come from then if you don't have a mother? Oh, I was a monkey and after a car accident I became a girl. How do you feel about that? There are people who say we were monkeys and there's no God. It's like deny God. This is an example of the denial of God and saying that we were monkeys and we evolved into monkeys. And number 3, fasting during Ramadan. And you can see here, fasting is another tool that we use to train ourselves to be submissive to God. Why? Listen to this. During the daytime of Ramadan, we stop ourselves from eating, drinking, or having sexual intercourse from little before sunrise until sunset. And then after sunset, it's party time. We do all things. So it's permissible after sunset, but not before then. Now, during the daytime of Ramadan, you're so hungry and so thirsty. Your temptations are saying what? I'm telling you what? Eat and drink, right? It's so tempting to eat and drink, but God is saying what? Don't eat, don't drink. Now, if you're submissive to God, here is a test for you. Push us nuts to shop now. You're hungry and thirsty. If you're submissive to temptations, you eat and drink and ignore what God says. But if you're submissive to God, then you will not eat or drink and you will just ridicule your temptations and say, just stay quiet. I'm not eating, I'm not drinking. I'm going to follow what God says. So that is the first lesson, to training that spiritual muscle to be submissive to God, not submissive to temptation. The second lesson is that eating and drinking, are they lawful or unlawful? They are lawful. It's fine to eat and drink, right? Nothing wrong with that. If you have demonstrated ability to stop yourself from doing lawful things, then can't you also stop yourself from doing unlawful things? Like cheating and doing injustice to others, and being evil. So that's another exercise that we learn. This is why we say Ramadan is a training camp, or a training institution. For 1 month, you're training yourself to be submissive to God. And the third thing, what happens to you if you, don't tell anyone, sneak to the refrigerator, open, and grab the food and drink, eat and drink and wipe your mouth. Say, I'm fasting. I'm fasting. I'm fasting. I'm fasting. Can you like me? I'm fasting. Now, is there a law enforcement agency standing on the top of the page saying, you are under arrest for not, for breaking your fast? There's no such a thing. But you are self-enforcing it on yourself. And that is what is meant. Is that it's a secret between you and God. And consciousness of God is what you develop. Say, while I can escape the eye, I can escape the last but not least,
Get it to
how
somebody.
many times do you, how many times, how many times do you snack? 5, 10,
Yeah.
20.
I put everybody's name in there, but yeah,
So
because I got the money.
don't feel hungry, and we forget about our own brothers and sisters in humanity. We are fasting
No, right off those.
because not because it's Ramadan, it's because it's food. Because they are food. You know, this is important. And this is the thing to remind us about.
Well, I mean, that's the game of break, it was just
Sorry,
redrawing.
the next pillar, which is to pay the Catholic charity, which is 2.5% of your income.
Go ahead.
Savings, 2.5% of your savings. You know, income minus expenses, whatever you use, 2.5% goes to the hungry people, not to the
Say that, before.
And there are different days.
It's okay, you can turn
By rain, it begins by rain 5%, related by machine, and you know, all these bills, but the concept is to pay the obligatory charity. This is God's right in your money, to give to the poor and the needy. And last is pilgrimage to Mecca. This is only once per lifetime, and with a condition, the people who can afford it financially and who have the health to go on this journey, because it's not an easy journey. And I will show you a video clip that walks you through Malcolm X doing the pilgrimage. It's a 5 minutes video clip that will show lots of details about this. And people travel here through so many reasons. How come this is a tool to remind us who we are, or to help us be better people? Because people travel through so many reasons. People travel for business. People travel for entertainment. People travel for all kinds of reasons. But Muslims are traveling here for one reason: sacrificing time, money, and effort for the sake of God. Nothing else. So that is the only reason for travel. And go to crowded places. People, when they go watch the football cup, they go to very crowded stadiums, and they get squeezed by others and everything for the sake of fun, for the sake of football, right? Now, of course, God's more worthy for people to travel for and to go to crowded places for His sake. So it's like an annual convention where Muslims meet every year to remember God. And then I will skip this, and I will just show you some numerical facts that 17% of Muslims speak Arabic, and 83% of Muslims don't speak any Arabic language. The largest Muslim country is Indonesia, and Indonesia has, where's Indonesia? Right here. Has 200 million Muslims by itself. Pakistan has 150 million Muslims. India has about 200, sister, is it 200 or 250? How many? And India? 23%, and India is about 1 billion. So let's say about 230 million Muslims. And so far, you know, this is the distribution of Muslims around the world. Now let me show you the video clips, which is going to terminate the presentation and open the door for questions and answers about Malcolm X.
My darling baby, everywhere I go, I am welcome as a representative of our people. Our struggle is known and respected worldwide. Coincidentally, there are 2 white men who follow me around wherever I go. I wonder who they're working for. If I was a betting man, I'd say the CIA. What's your guess? Today I arrived in Arabia. I have never witnessed such sincere hospitality
and true brotherhood as practiced here in the ancient home of Abraham, Muhammad, and the great prophets of the Scripture. Today, with thousands of others, I proclaim
God's greatness in the sacred city of Mecca. Wearing the Ihram garb, I made my 7 circuits around the Kaaba. I drank from the well of Zamzam. I prayed to Allah on Mount Arafat. It was the only time in my life that I stood before the Creator of all and felt like a complete human being.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
pray to the same God with fellow Muslims whose eyes were blue, whose hair was blonde, and whose skin was the whitest of white. And we were all brothers. True. People of all colors and races believing in one God, in one humanity. Each hour here in this sacred land enables me to have a greater spiritual insight into what is happening in America. The American Negro can never be blamed for his racial animosity. He's only reacting to 400 years of oppression, discrimination. But as racism leads America up the suicidal path, I do believe that the younger generation will see the handwriting on the wall, and many of them will want to turn to the spiritual path of the truth. The only way left in this world to ward off the disaster that racism must surely lead to. Once before in prison, the truth came and blinded me. Well, it has happened again. In the past, I've made sweeping indictments of all white people. And these generalizations have caused injuries to some white folks who did not deserve it.
Because of the spiritual rebirth which I was blessed to undergo as a result of my pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca, I no longer subscribe to sweeping indictments of your race. I intend to be very careful not to sentence anyone.
Not to sentence anyone who has not been proven guilty.
I am not a racist.
I am not a racist. And I do not subscribe to any of the tenets of racism. In all honesty and sincerity, it can be stated that I wish nothing but freedom, justice, and equality. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all people. Now, my first concern, of course, is with the group to which I belong. For we, more than any others, are deprived of our inalienable rights. But I believe the true practice of Islam can remove the cancer of racism from the hearts and the souls of all Americans. And if I can die having brought any light, having exposed any meaningful truth that will help destroy this disease, then all the credit is due to Allah, the Lord of all the world. And only the mistakes have been mine. Please give all my love to the children. I love you dearly. Sincerely, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X.
This is chapter 1.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين.
Let's begin.
How did you set up your trip abroad? You sense the feeling of great brotherhood.
Yes, when I was in Mecca, making the pilgrimage, and the brotherhood that existed there among all people, all races, all levels of people who had accepted the religion of Islam. What it had done, Islam, for those people, despite their complexion differences. Perhaps if people here in America would try and practice and study the religion of Islam, it might help to erase the plague of racism here. I think Muslims over there look at themselves as human beings, as part of the same human family. Today, my friends are black, red, yellow, brown, and white.
Malcolm, are you?
Okay, questions and answer time now. Feel free to ask any question, don't hesitate. Was in the mosque in Egypt. That's like called the Castle Mosque in Egypt. Cairo, yeah.
And this chapter 1, which is the opening chapter, is recited at least 17 times a day because it is recited in every unit of the 5 prayers. And the 5 prayers have a total of 17 units every day. So any Muslim has to recite that as a minimum of 17 times every day.
When you're going about your day, like you're at work or you're at school or wherever you are, do you have permission or whatever to recite your prayers?
You can pray anywhere. It's better if you pray in the mosque. You get 27 as much credit. But if you're at work, you can pray at work. If you're anywhere, you can pray anywhere, except of course dirty places like the bathroom and things like that. And